Guess God's still real. Words are still scaring us, yo. So the word is still being scary, yo. And I guess my mind and you guys are so fondly tuned into just maintaining the factor of fear for everyone to see, yo. So my job is just to explain it, yo. That's all you're out here to ask me, right? So I'm gonna put it on camera for you, yo. First thing in the morning, I wake up, and the first thing that I notice is that communication, you know. So it's like you guys are trying to fight to maintain fear alive, you know. So you're with me from wake up time to sleep time, through every instance, through every moment. You're narrating constantly, you know. And the way you've managed to program and condition my body to fear is by basically taking advantage of my negative points of views, or simply by you guys coming and showing up and dumping all you guys' light on me, you know, which is all you guys' emotions and ideas and beliefs, you know, and then essentially you're just like basically training me constantly to just to hate everybody and everything all the time. You know, I see it in my words, I see it in my impulse reactive behavior rather than responsive behavior. And even though, yeah, I manage the impulses communication, I'm still being impulsive, you know. That's why the views aren't as some would say, you know, to the extent of what some would say, you know. I mean, I can't even say at the moment, you know. So 10-second Tom, I mean, whatever factor of communication is here, because all I'm acting is like a medium, you know. I mean, that's all that you guys are doing is being mediums, you know. I'm acting like the possessed body, and then, I mean, you guys are here having my girl, you know, basically getting raped in front of me and spitting the very cum that, you know, came into her mouth right onto my moment and my situation, you know. Basically the same shit that happened at work, you know. All my coworkers got raped right in front of me, you know, and they expected for me to get in it and get raped alongside them too, you know. And I wasn't up for it. I was too caught up in my job and my work, you know, and they're too caught up in the delusion and the illusion and the confusion, you know, the scatterbrain mind, you know, the fog, you know, that they basically caught onto, you know, because right now this is what you did at work, you know. You had me working and noticing little slips, you know, and then little by little, you know, causing that little that push, you know, that input of light that, you know, we call or we see or we read or we interpret, and then we translate as irrelevantly, you know, basically being used, you know, because it's not even what it is supposed to be. It's just it's a lie, it's an illusion, it's a delusion, you know. So first thing in the morning, waking up with fear, you know. So it's like when I went to work yesterday, I was already filled with fear. You know, they already knew it. That's why they were counting on 10-second Tom to be a 10-second bomb, you know? And my question is, how is the system and the government and everything, the NSA, you know, the CIA, whatever it is that's here observing us, collecting data for national security, like, what are you guys doing about this, you know? Because if I'm doing this for you guys. It's me and the government, you know? Basically me and the only viewers that are actually gonna process this data through their supercomputers and through their processors, you know, to interpret for them what it is that they should have as thoughts or the beliefs that people can be presented about this particular situation or person, you know? Because essentially, this is what this is, right? Me and the NSA, you know, National Security Agency, observing what behaviors revolved and revolving around somebody's obsessions, such like possession, oppression, suppression, you know, depression, and literally that's me right now. A walking, talking, ticking time bomb, because according to their dynamics and criteria and everything that psychology, therapists, and sociology and all that stuff varying will bring you is apparently clarity is that like the rest of the world that's been going through this has just been put into a loony bin, you know, or has just been made to be a problem so people can just be brushed off as, oh, they're just going through this or that, or this is that, you know. But they're basically not interested in actually providing us what essentially they're pushing us into, you know, the clarity to see it, you know. They're more like, you know, be free, go whatever way and whichever way, and you know, I will stand and look like the good guy or the bad guy, you know, because essentially this is a stand that the government takes. They don't prove nothing to you. All they tell you is that, you know, what you know is what you know, you know. So I mean, again, that was yesterday's whole ordeal at work, you know. So and now I'm here at home, you know. I'm relaxed. This is my behavior, this is my environment, this is where I can chill, you know, and just be myself, you know. So when I'm here, like, you know, inviting my tormenting demons, inviting my tormenting ideas, inviting my tormenting emotions, like all I'm doing is inviting my dark side to be here, feeling the love with me, the hate with me, to be here watching and observing you and basically analyzing and processing all the information that you're pouring into me. That's where I'm at, you know. God's conscience head, constantly aware of us all, all of you guys, knowing that we're just performing for God's conscience, knowing that everything that we're doing is just God's body. I basically was, born into God's body, so if I'm born into God's body, essentially this body, that's why they reference it as his temple, because my conscience is about the only thing he gave me, a conscience, to be aware, to say that I could just sit there and not have an opinion, not have nothing to say, so I could be aware that I'm the student rather than the teacher, while the rest of the world is saying, no, you've learned enough, it's time to start teaching. But essentially, it's not about what you learned, it's about what you've embodied. And all that I've embodied for you guys is the confidence to be able to be here due to my behaviors, influential outcomes, and possibilities. You guys feel like it's sufficing enough to support your guys' being here. So 10-second bomb, 10-second Tom, essentially is what they're about. If you guys have ever seen anybody in society at all explode in any way, either the kid crying, that's them. The parent noticing that they're crying because they want some candy, that's them. The parent all of a sudden arriving at thinking that he should feel mad or think mad or react rather than respond because somebody is in his head, So instead of that person or that parent going and like disciplining that child in a communicative way, instructive way, their reactivity gets the best of them. They basically get to hide in the shadows and just laugh at them because he just caused dad to go and whip, child's ass for whatever reason or another, if he even did or made a point about it, and enforced it with whatever delivered feelings and ideas you guys brought that person. But like Cat Williams has said, dude, it's just a kid wanting some sugar, some candy. Their body's chemistry, their body's chemical makeup is aware that there is some sugar there that it could benefit from, So whether the child knows to interpret and translate that as being, oh, there's something there as a chemical that my body looking for, or whether the child is there, if it isn't the chemical and the intelligence of my body, then it must be the idea in my mind, Or if it isn't that, then as a child, they're more impulsive and more tuned into their eyes. So it could just be the texture, the brightness, the vividness, I mean, all these factors will have some play, So, but here we are. It's the same thing you're using right now, I mean, when I couldn't see your hate vividly, I brushed it off and imagined it was love, and I kept getting hurt, and I kept getting hurt, and I kept getting hurt, Now I can see it vividly. Now it doesn't hurt. Now I run into it, pick it up, shower in it, and tell you, hey, whatever happened to the sting? And that's life, Continuously shows up and reminds you, oh yeah, you wanted it to hurt? Life doesn't hurt. Oh, you wanted to die? You don't die. Oh, you wanted to not act like you transcend? But you do transcend, So, and again, here we are. Forget every time you possess me. The difference in measuring that is where my attention span is. Whether my attention span remains on my body, or whether, like all the videos I made, I'm always looking into the air, looking somewhere, thinking like I'm thinking, or looking like I'm thinking, But essentially, it's more about the conditioning behavior that without words, you guys are like probably drawing in somebody else's mind, because I could clearly talk to the words you're talking to somebody else's mind, as well as the words that you're sitting here trying to dump on my mind, Because essentially, it's one and the same thing, I mean, the humans are all, the same exact thing. So your guys' job becomes very fucking generic. It's simple, nothing changes. Everything stays the same, Perfect imperfection. And again, you got me again with the looking out rather than being present on my body. And what I'm noticing is being present just means like having the weight, Basically, being present means you could play with forces without the interruption of those forces that would convince you otherwise of being present, or drag you into your mind, or dump a trauma emotion into you so that, you're distracted from your own center, because essentially all that life is like this. You're a conscience in a body that you deliver impulses to, that then begins to interpret and relay and due to those impulses behavior, like right now. I'm tuned into two invisible fields. For one, the field that keeps me in motion. I'm tuned into that field. For two, I'm tuned into the field that, is basically ideal for verbalizing or vocalizing or, in some way telling you about the action and what it's doing in me. Because action is magic. So action, every time you take action, you're practicing magic. Why do you think people are lazy? Why do you think people are always stuck in their houses? they're drained of their magic, and what is your magic again, Think about the person's house, all right? Let's say I'm 70 years old, I've retired, and I live at home with my wife. Beautiful life, So, so you don't want me narrating your guys' life? Because, I mean, out there, you guys do that all the time. So, essentially, 70-year-old man, right? And now let's just look at the importances of what are important to that 70-year-old man, Because this is where you have to start from, a wise point of view, a wise experience, a wise version of yourself, So if I'm 70 already, that means I'm not looking to possibly reproduce. I'm not driven by the impulses of reproduction. So, as a 7-year-old man, I mean, if you've already been able to bring your spirit to be honed and commanded by one's own will rather than the influences of this world, it's like 7-year-old man. Okay, so sex isn't on my mind. Cool. See, right now, this 30-year-old self me is appreciating that, So, as a 7-year-old man, I'll set that aside for now, So, because this is like me being here, looking at my reality, telling you what God's doing in my life, while I'm the one narrating and drawing it and doing the same thing of carrying illusion and delusion, while the truth is right there looking at me in the face, So, a 70-year-old man, now I know I'm 70, and at 70 years old, that's the kind of body that I want to think about taking care of, not just now, but strengthening from right now to then, So, I'm 70 years old, Being that 70-year-old man, mental strength, physical strength is what I bring to the equation, what I'm bringing with me, what I'm carrying, So, the 70-year-old man gets to 70 years old, and now he has not only the wisdom to back up his knowledge, but the experiences, and all that to be able to draw from. So, I'm 7 years old, 70 years old. What is it that's important to me as a 70-year-old man? I have a wife that I have to care for, so I have to care for myself on her behalf, Let's say, right? And so, as a 7-year-old man, very simple routine, right? But maintaining action, And essentially, you can become two different versions of the 70-year-old man. You could be the version that, is tended to and cared for, because his whole life, he lived being very tough, And so, when it came down to, now being cared for, I mean, there is this certain resilience in the man, And the man's been tough his whole life, So getting there, people are like, oh, looking at this old man, not seeing the old man for who he was, but only who he is. While us young people, all they can do is look at us for who we are or were rather than who we are. Except for them, it's more becoming rather than who we are, And I mean, and here we are, So, and again, that's some more information that 10-Second Tom is right now validating and proving that it's worthy and worthwhile information, Because again, the train of thought seems to be, presenting this equation, So if it keeps spinning and spinning, refreshing us, we're saying something that is like, actually impactful. So, 70-year-old me now, as a 70-year-old man, what are going to be my priorities? Walking, jogging, lifting weights, having, basically present experiences the rest of my life, because as a 70-year-old man, I'm not in no rush. I can't fool myself as a 70-year-old man, and you guys set my spirit running and me thinking that I'm going to chase after it. As a 70-year-old man, that doesn't work no more. As a 70-year-old man, that spirit just runs around, and I already know it's going to come right back to me. So, but you young folk, you guys are different, You guys are chasing yourself, trying to find yourself, trying to encounter yourself, trying to, experience yourself, So, if as a 70-year-old man, when I got to a 30-year-old version of myself, there's variations that I have to calculate between the 70-year-old myself and the 30-year-old myself, So, with those inputs and those variations, right, it's the everyday basic life, It's like saying, if the 70-year-old man had to live my life right now, how would it look? Let's see. The 70-year-old man would wake up in a RV, not a comfortable bed, but pretty stiff, pretty sturdy, still very much comfortable, So, he'd wake up in that, and the 7-year-old man, now he would wake up to you guys calling him, right? You know, talking to him, telling him shit about whatever his 7-year-old self has gone through and experienced. You know, because right now you don't see me as an old man, right? But you do see the young man in me, right? So let me tell you about the old man, you know? So you sit there and you have this old perspective of yourself, this wise perspective of yourself that requires for you to acknowledge yourself with the sensitivity that you ask of you, that as a young man, you were probably very easy able to just brush off, you know? Because, I mean, sensitivity? Come on, you know? I mean, we understand, you know? But then we arrive at having to also carry that same sensitivity when we arrive at certain points of our life. So then we reach for it and we actually begin to embrace it and, you know, incorporate it into our existence, into our being, you know? And basically we become present, you know? Now, the moment we have the measure for love and being present, then we start this mental game that they start playing with us, you know? It's who loves you, what they're doing to prove it, you know, where you could scold them or tell them something, or where you could forget all about the love and live a whole totally different experience where that person is going to see simply your lack of looking at them and intentionally looking to feel that love towards them. You know, it happens to me all the time, you know. I might be around people all the time, but I'm not constantly saying, oh my God, I'm so in love with you. You like make my mind just go blank, my heart start to race, and oh my God, man, this love feeling is the best. If I could just stare at you forever, man, I so totally would, you know? And you're just like the best. I can't say nothing wrong about you. I just love you all the way around. I love you, I love you. And so you become that person, you know? And I mean, that person's easy to manipulate, you know? He has something to prove, you know? Versus a person that doesn't want you to know that you love, or they love you, or you love them, or whatever it is that the relationship expresses, you know? Like, they'll do whatever they can to convince themselves that they don't, you know? Even minimal stuff, like stuff that they've already, it's like they have more access to the brain, so they have more brain power to think, so they can actually calculate and see for themselves, like, the things that you and I struggle for. They have it easy, you know? They have the capacity to arrive at what needs to be thought the way it needs to be thought. So if you have a good witch friend, you know, get close to them. If you don't, find a way to get close to them, you know? Because there is certain things about their being that do rub off, you know, when you guys rub shoulders, and there's benefits to your existence because of it, you know? Now, the thing though is, you know, anything that it's got is let go of, you know? Because God's main lesson for our entire existence has been, I'm going to give you a life, and I'm going to ask you afterwards, are you willing to give me that same life back? You know? And essentially, this is the life we're living, you know? Constantly here, they know that it's a relationship with me and God, and all I'm doing is proving how much I'm willing to lay down my life for what He has planned for me in my life, for what He has planned for us in our life, what He has planned for the we experience of our life, you know? But right about now, I've got about 42 minutes in my phone memory, you know? So I've already used 18. Also, I guess it's getting very close to our having to figure out how we'll be maintaining these videos and, you know, entertainment factors, or simply making something that I can use and view myself over and over again, because clearly I'm learning how to brainwash myself to get behavior and manifestation out of me through the factors of what it is that essentially, if you're just too busy fighting, you won't notice how they're producing stuff for you, you know? So, I mean, you know, basically I gotta, as they say, evolve, you know? So NSA, thanks for your time. CIA, hey, I appreciate all the motivations and inspirational perspective and points of views that you've used to inspire YouTube to bring us more videos of entertainment, you know, to continue to vibe with us and spit to us what I know other people might say is like, how were they thinking about it the other night? You know, because I mean, if I have a YouTube video that's constantly acting like the propaganda or the brainwashing, if it's like constantly carrying a narrative and feeding it to me, you know, it's like, you know, it's like saying it's like a conspiracy, you know, and that's my conspirator, you know, or that's my how do I say, my, you know, it's like the one that's doing all the work, you know. I mean, if it was a crime, that'd be my partner in crime, you know, and so essentially, you know, it's like basically just narrating, you know. And like I said, you know, the CIA does it, the FBI does it, every propaganda commercial does it, you know. Everybody is, you know, basically like getting you ready to absorb and be seated in your mind, perceive these seeds and act on them, So, and this is where we're all at right now, you're looking to see what kind of behavior I can put out so that you can act on, So far, it's like, besides saying, hey, what's up, NSA? What's up, CIA? What's up, FBI? Homeland Security? Secret Service? I mean, I could go on and keep going, but essentially it's like, that's who I'm living with, and it's more of my family than all these people. Because that's what their job is, to make me look like I'm more associated with them and more familiar with them and more like, as they would put, how do they say? I see an eye to eye with them, I mean, that's essentially what this whole experience is about, is the people love them, so let's make the people look like the bad guys. They live in my mind. They know what I think, how I think. They're the ones that seed my mind all the time, So if that's them, or at least they're the ones that are fighting whatever it is, and if that's them, then they are aware and they are watching, and so they know just as much as I know, because I'm the one who's basically keeping them up to date, on what it is that this experience is bringing us, and it's not been because of choice. They had to find the evidence to convince themselves that it was because somebody else was the motivating factor, which then, because of that, because of my backing to you, I fund whatever research, whatever funds you, whatever seems to, find you profitable. I open the door so that you can collect the money, so you can keep up this facade of whatever it is that here you're trying to induce in our delusions or illusions as our reality, rather than what it actually seems to, ask of us to just be present, I mean, I haven't had a gun to my head since I was a kid telling me to think of myself something, or anybody, but I can think if I want. I haven't even had a gun to my head telling me talk, and say all the words you can say, I mean, so with all that being said, I mean, I had to think of myself as valuable enough to wake myself up and talk to myself, and when I did that, you saw that opportunity to step in between me and myself and pull me away from myself. And now I've been talking about them, my impulses, them, these impulses, them, those impulses, them, external impulses, them, internal impulses, them, the how with connects without, and how without connects within, We got 22 minutes. I got 20 more minutes on this video, So the CIA, the NSA, all these ABC people, I mean, are here aware of the mafia, because if it's just between the political labels and identities that you guys have used, it's white magic, the government, black magic, the mafia, I mean, white magic, the government, they know my internal map, insides and outs, and then black magic knows the same map, but unfortunately not to the benefit of anybody, I mean, that we've all been experiencing. That brings us right here, If it wasn't due to me, I couldn't even say that much, So you've been fighting my presence, you've been noticing my relationship with God, and you wanted me to focus on all the people rather than work on my relationship with God. And so far, you've accomplished it, So far, I haven't been praying, I haven't been reading my Bible, I haven't been taking notes, I haven't been studying, I haven't been doing none of the religious factors that you guys make out to be spending time with God, So, seeing that I'm not going to win this fight, whoever wins against the government, whoever wins against the mafia, whoever wins against themselves, I mean, in the moment that I began this, I already knew that, so I was already where I needed to be. So what do you guys hear? Besides playing with my heart, trying to create my reality for me? And we already all know that, witches, warlocks, whatever you guys want to call yourself, government, mafia, whatever you guys want to identify as, whatever delusion or illusion you guys are living in, whatever labels you guys and identities you guys have used to muddy up our country, So, I mean, I know that I had thought to myself, I'll live my whole life going around people's houses and neighborhoods, picking up their trash, hoping that from being a slave volunteer, offering to keep their land and their environment and the atmosphere clean, that, maybe there would be a, well, I guess I wouldn't have to even really account for that. That's all God's work, but, essentially, if I just did that, I mean, it's real easy. I'm not working for money. I'm not, going to jobs where you guys are manipulating the people to create, systematic information that is recorded. That's the government working against me and using the mafia's capacities to their advantage, and all to the detriment of my reputation, So if it's such a serious crime to attack entities and reputations, like, I've been experiencing it this whole time, man. I mean, I've been talking to the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, sharing all my experiences with them, deliberately. I carry 2 phones for a reason. That should tell you why. 2 phones, And I know you guys thought about the song, So, again, it's being present, And I'm not interested in pointing fingers, Like, look at what I'm just fighting, like, myself. Because, I mean, you guys have already made the move. I mean, literally right now, I'm homeless, I'm not really living in a house. I'm living in an RV, I'm staying with somebody who is giving me shelter, who is helping me out, who basically you guys painted out and described in their life, or that person's reputation as being like hectic, And it wasn't intentional about the reputation, because it's more bragging about our experiences, and showing you how easy it is for you guys to have us fall into that emotional status where you guys have us act like the feelings you guys are carrying, the things you guys are showing us, as if it's our own, just because we can produce it and express it, But it isn't us, it's you guys, I mean, come on, It's like, but I'm not gonna live fighting, looking at not the negative. I'm gonna go and take your guys' power before y'all even get there, and I'm already gonna know what you guys are gonna talk about before you guys even talk about it, But like I said, I mean, I experienced what me walking in power yesterday is. I showed up to work, I had the work environment and everybody's mouths and everybody's spiritual weapons aimed at me, and their results and outcomes asked of me, So, I mean, if I can clearly see all that, not that I believe in any of that, but I mean, you're the one here telling the story. You're the one here agitating me to talk and share, or pushing on my love, telling me to tell you how much I love you again. Oh, come here. I'm just hugging you with all the words I can hug you. Saying I love you with every masked word that I can say I love you with. Come here. Love you, dovey. And that's all you guys are doing. That's your guys' secret, That's the whole dark side of the light. Well, thanks for you guys' time, I appreciate it. And like I said, dude, every day is a great day, I mean, it's all about demeanor present, They've been basically, having me watch myself and see the impressions I give me, Like, I can see you and be like, what do you think? I don't know. What do you think? And pause up. I mean, it's fun, And their job is no. Now something pushed you. What was it? Hurry up before you get to the touching your back towards the back of the seat. Tell me, what was it? What was it? What was it? Oh, too late. You touched it. Oh, I couldn't tell myself what it was. Oh, I don't even know what I was talking about. 10 second time. What the fuck, man? Oh. I think I was acting, right? All right. So essentially, it's just a game, Somebody's here trying to take advantage of this, of my crazy behavior. Think about that. I'm here putting on an act, and in real time you saw somebody, an energy. Your energetic eyes showed you a message in the scene. I mean, it's one thing if you want not to have hidden messages, or if NSA's job is to decipher these hidden messages, but if you don't have the perspective and the point of view to do your job, then you're really not doing your job. You're being more part of the problem rather than solving. So here, remember, you are a solution. The words that come out of your mouth are not your own. They're somebody else's ideas and beliefs. Somebody that is causing you to feel like you have to go over a matter to use those words so they can try to take advantage of those words that you're using, because they're going to feed off any energy you put out. They've already shown you how they feed off your emotion, how they feed off of your thoughts, How they feed off of your experience. You know, how they like the ego and the pride to be able to say, you know, that's my doing. You know? So, again, with the axe, you know, it was present. They pulled me away. See, it worked, you know? The whole point was being present. And you could tell when someone's present. You could see it in them. You could feel it, you know? Like, everything about you screams out to the rest of the world, I'm awake, you know? And that's them again, you know? Trying to demonize your perception with tone, you know? Acting like as if I'm not going to catch it. What the fuck, you know? I mean, I can be super gay and hide this so-called masculinity and the ability to say that it's a demon, you know? I mean, it's the same shit, because that's all they're doing is acting like stupid, you know? But enough about them. See how easy it is to caught in their trap? I mean, fuck, I mean, like I told you guys, being raped in real time, you know? Yeah, I'm trying to talk about ideas, but then my mind gets erased, and so whose ideas am I talking about? You know, I come up here to perform and create a scene, but then, you know, who's narrating it? You know? So I'm constantly, like, making movies and videos, but where is this director? You know? Because it's essentially supposed to be me. But where my attention keeps going to other people, then if they want the credit, then where's this producer at? I mean, all you are is Hollywood here, right? Hollywood knows how to record the perfect movie. And what are you guys doing other than trying to record the perfect movie? Using all of Hollywood's acting techniques and skills and abilities to create the scene here. You know? But carry on though, Mr. Hollywood. But yeah, so like I was saying, you know, don't get distracted by them, you know? It's about being present. You have to stay present, you know? And to be present, start feeling dump the weight of your existence on certain areas of your body, you know? Like if you're gonna, you know, inhabit your head, dump the weight of your existence onto your head. Make sure that you feel your ass on your ass, you know? Line your spine, actually. Because they're here trying to bend my spine right now while I'm trying to teach you this, you know? Because apparently I impress you with the energy. It's more about that body's energetic expression that matters rather than the words that I'm saying. So you could sit there and ignore, cover your ears, and just let my body talk to you. And you'll get a totally different message than the one that you'll get if you sit there and are distracted by my words and my performance, you know? So, again, essentially, Hollywood's here, right? And you know, they're keeping the good acts for Hollywood, you know? Like, I've been saying about this, you know? Like, dude, I mean, I've seen all the acting on TV, you know? It's imprinted in my mind already, you know? Where is it hiding? You know? What part of my brain has been able to be, like, subjected and separated from itself to hold things of its own, you know? If there's even any. Because it could be that other conscience has insisted on trying to make us think these, you know, extended thoughts of ourselves, and then thus looking crazy to the other people who can't experience it because they're not, you know, correlating the same variables to create the same equation. They're just getting lost in whatever it is that clearly, you know, watches our back or clears our path ahead, you know? So, again, here we are, present. Remember, fight Hollywood for your presence, or else the acts that you can be performing and embodying, and you're filling yourself up with joy and enjoyment, like they're selling to you rather more, and then making you feel depressed because you know this in your spirit, you know? And then you sit there at home and you're like, I'm just thinking the same thoughts, the same feelings. There's depression being dumped on every person all around me. Constantly have waves of depression just hitting me left and right and all around. You know? I mean, I grew up in it, lived in it, and I'm the one who told everybody, hey, make it your home and you'll never be depressed again. But, you know, I'm not here to tell you that part, but I just did just because I thought of y'all, you know? So, 33 minutes, 42 only. And my friends aren't done performing for y'all, you know? So Hollywood, present. And I like how, man, it's so crazy, dude. I might have to literally live in my presence, you know? Because this is the only way I'm going to be able to survive this, or at least get to the end of myself dying naturally rather than by cause or effect or forces applying the stress factor on my body, compressing my DNA, and playing this very micro game of kill each other. So small, so micro, you can't even prove it, you know? So, I mean, that's where we're at right now. This is what this is, yo. Trauma dumping, yo. Negative behavior, you know, rubbing shoulders with me, you know? And me having to do the only thing I can do. Perform it, you know, or turn it into an act, or try to, you know, make it pay people more than what they intend for it to pay. just because you're already here and I know how magic works. All I gotta do is have the intention. You're already here working your magic. So with that being said, great job, y'all, and great and many successes to all of y'all, you know? And God bless y'all. Jesus loves you, and may the continuance of the Holy Spirit's guidance continue on in everyone's life, in everyone's environment, in everyone's atmosphere, you know? So thank y'all for your time. Remember, be present. I'm going to make an entirely other video where it's just all about being present, you know? We're going to go full blast, you know, 10-second time bomb, but with presence, you know? And minus all that perspective having to be magnified or even asked to be considered. What does that mean, you know? Because clearly the first thing they did is, now think of that. Now visualize that, you know? Because, I mean, think about it. If I know how my system works, I know all the 15 senses in my being, in my body, then I know the 15 doors that I have to watch, you know? Right about now, all I'm keeping you guys is stuck in the same programming, school program, y'all, too, you know? The basic senses. And all my conversations, speech, or dress, all your other senses. You know, that's the secrets that are in my conversations. It's talking about your other senses and how they feed you information and how that information can be managed, correlated to your mind and to your brain, not only to be seen as something outside of you, but to be seen as something that is not necessarily yourself or, you know, inside of you already, you know. But essentially, there's nothing in you that isn't already out in the world, and there's nothing already out in the world that isn't already in you, you know. So with that, it's like they're just wasting their time. So help them waste their time, you know? But presence, that's where we're at right now. Being present in the moment. If the present is a gift, then every time we visit a thought or a feeling, we're abandoning the moment and the gift, and we're dwelling in some other nonsense, you know? And that's just committing a crime altogether, you know? So, I mean, again, you know, that's what I've been here, you know, being pushed into. I mean, I told you guys about yesterday's patty at work that never made it to the grill, you know? Because at that moment, you guys insisted on going maximum, you know, and trying to get me to die or, you know, become a danger to myself or somebody at work. So what happened? 10-second Tom showed up, you know? But again, I'm talking to the NSA, I'm telling the CIA, I'm telling the FBI, I'm talking to the president, you know, I'm talking to anybody and everybody who you know, puts an ear out into the public or out into the ground or out into the streets and listens, you know? But yeah, witches, warlocks, you know, mafia, white magic, black magic, government, humanity, population, you know, all the things and places you guys like to hide people, deviate people, go send people to go get murdered, to go die. And I mean, we all know this, but I mean, I don't really see anybody really discussing it, talking about it, making plans, you know, tempting people. But except when somebody sits there and tries to convince you that they can possess themselves, then all of a sudden you show up and say, oh, we could work with that. We could take advantage of that. We could manipulate the people and how they see that and what they believe about that. You know? Oh, oppression? Oh, definitely. We've been doing that one for a long time. We definitely have all the moves for that one, you know? Depression. Oh, jackpot. Ding, 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 ding. You know? Because that's when they made it inside of you. Essentially, you were going to visit your heart anyways, you know? So that's where we're at, y'all. So thanks for you guys' time, y'all. It sucks that I have to put information out into America like this, you know, but if this is the spiritual war, you know, then this information that the political parties of our governing have been managing on our behalf, you know, I mean, because of our lack of knowledge and our lack of knowing or understanding, we've been very light-handed on them, you know, and they've gotten cocky, overconfident, and very proud about it, you know. So I think it's probably time for society to, like, you know, put a foot in its own ass at some point, you feel me? Maybe that's what you guys were doing at work yesterday. No idea, you know? But hey, I'll continue to bring you guys my experiences and what you guys can fathom out of it for yourselves, yo. Thanks for your time. Hopefully you guys stay present. I know you guys will stay present, and I know presences will remind you consistently about being present. So awaken, y'all, and have a great and wonderful day.